Welcome to Carp Fever TV. We're down at the legendary Burfield complex. As you can see, it's absolutely gorgeous water. It's a bit grey and misty today, but that's good fishing weather. We're down here to interview the angler known as Jon McAllister. He's top angler. He's going to tell us all about his rigs and stuff, and just generally where he's come from and how he's got to where he is. So, over to Jon. Right, so here I am. I've come round to the peg now that Jon's in. Johnny Mac.
Alright.
So Jon, we'll start right at the beginning, mate. Where was you born? Where did you grow up? And how did you first get into fishing?
Well, I was born in Bromley in Kent and raised in that sort of area. My mum and dad split up, and single parent family and what have you. Mum brought me and my brother up, and we moved down to East Sussex when I was around about 6 years old, I suppose. Spent about 3 or 4 years down there. Moved back to Bromley when I was sort of 10 years old, I suppose, 9-10 years old. And had a little dabble fishing for small stuff in the rivers, just as a kid, which was fun, obviously, just exploring. And when we moved back to the sort of suburbs, there wasn't much fishing to be done. So that took a back seat for many years, and you know, then grew up, left school.
Yeah. You had some other hobbies in between, didn't you? You used to like your VW Beetles and stuff like that.
Yeah, I used to.
Yeah.
When I was sort of 17 years old, I sort of used to buy and sell Volkswagen Beetles, split screen campers, that sort of thing. Just a bit of a hobby. But obviously, fishing was missing out of my life, and ended up sort of just sort of wayward on the streets a bit here and there. And your brother, funnily enough, was the guy that got me back into fishing.
Yeah. How did that come about then? How did you end up going fishing with him?
Well, basically what happened, we all used to hang around in this sort of pub opposite where he lived.
That's right, yeah.
With your dad and that. And he used to come home from work on a Friday, and I used to see him loading his van up, rushing off, and that was it. He was gone for the weekend. And I used to think to myself, there must be more to this fishing than meets the eye again, you know. So I sort of said to him, can you take me fishing? And he said, oh, you know, I'm meet me up at outside the flats at, I don't know what it was, 4:30 in the morning next Saturday. And he said, I'll take you to the River Eden in Edenbridge.
That's right, yeah.
And
that's one of his favourite spots down there, wasn't it?
Yeah. And basically from there, I think he probably thought that I wasn't going to turn up, but yeah, sure enough, I turned up, and I was there outside waiting for him, and we went fishing that day, went to the River Eden, and that was kind of the start of it, getting back into it. And funnily enough, although Jay at the time was a very accomplished angler, more so obviously the better angler than I was at the time, I went down there and I caught this great big chub, and you know, he was quite taken back by it, and I think that was the start of my luck towards catching big fish.
Specimen size fish, yeah. So after a little spell on the river, you went actually carping with him, didn't you?
Yeah.
Proper carping. That was the next sort of session you did, weren't it? Yeah,
well, it was the warmer months of the year. Can't remember exactly when, but he said, oh, I'm going fishing for carp. And I was like, okay, right. And he said, do you want to come with me? I said, yeah, by all means, you know. He said, oh, what we're going to be doing though is we're going to be fishing with floating crust and bubble floats. And at the time I was
what's he talking about?
What's this? But yeah, so he took me to a lake here near Edenbridge again, Dorman's Land. I don't know the name of the lake, but beautiful little lake.
I think that was the name of the lake, to be honest with you, Dorman's Land.
Yeah, beautiful little lake. Train viaduct running across the top, like, you know, a bridge going over it, and
quite
beautiful.
Tucked away as well, weren't it? Yeah.
Beautiful lake.
Nice countryside around it. Yeah, very scenic.
Only held small carp, but you know, it was somewhere you could get a bite on a regular daily basis, and it was just a runs water, and it was a great place to learn picking up carp fishing. You know, all the methods,
all the little bits and bobs, just to get you on your way. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, and then obviously, what happened then? Because obviously you had no kit and stuff at that point, did you? So
That's right. I mean, Jay used to lend me bits and bobs, but then I was pretty much wanting to go on a regular basis with him, so I ended up, joining that club. It was Eastfield and District, I think
it was, yeah.
And joined that club and bought some bits and bobs. Didn't have proper carp set up then, but sort of started there really. But they had many waters on that club, within that club, and we sort of went through the list of waters on that club,
that ticket,
looking for the lakes with slightly bigger fish, like only doubles. 15-pounder was a good fish.
It was a good fish. Well, it's still a good fish now.
Yeah,
when you're learning the skills and that, that's a good fish to some people. So you've done that. So you were still fishing with Jay at this point, yeah?
Yeah.
When did you sort of eventually sort of branch out on your own?
Well, we fished for a few years together. I think we went to Sundridge Lakes, not far from Sevenoaks, and there was another lake there called Chipstead, which was on the same ticket as the Sundridge Lakes. That was Holmesdale Angling Club, and another good friend of mine, and called Ben Davis, who's now passed away. He sort of took me to Chipstead, and it was a 90-acre lake, and I was obviously blown away by the size of it to start with. Nice. And he said there were carp in there, and I thought, where would you begin to look for a fish?
Very daunting, isn't it?
In a 90-acre lake at the time. It was way beyond me, but he kind of stirred up the feeling of the unknown side of things, and we used to walk around and you'd speak to a carp angler, and he was very quiet and wouldn't really talk to us because we were sort of youths at the time, and they weren't really forthcoming with any advice or help sort of thing. But
secret squirrel, yeah.
So I think at that point, Jay still liked to fish the smaller waters. I kind of got intrigued with the myths and the uncaught and the unknown, and chasing something.
Every lake's got one.
Yeah, it has, but I sort of got into very quickly trying to catch the elusive, unknown fish from the big waters. I fastly sort of found myself drawn to this ethos that I stick with now, that the harder the challenge, the greater the reward.
Definitely.
And at that time it was way beyond me, and I wanted a piece of that, and that stuck with me ever since, really.
It's almost kind of trying to run before you walk, isn't it? But but like you say, if you're prepared to put in the effort, the reward is a lot greater.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I did spend a few years at Eastfield and District catching singles and doubles, and then again at Sundridge double figure for carp. And then this was somewhere that, who knows, it could hold. At the time I was thinking a 30-pounder was, and it still is.
Oh, Christ, yeah.
But at the time, 30-pound fish to me was massive. I was just sort of drawn to that side of fishing quite soon, sort of thing, in my angling career.
So basically, what made you go the route that you did with regards to the way you fish was just it's the myths and the unknown, and basically the real sort of. Well, you just don't know what's there.
The great challenge is what I like.
Yeah.
Like I said, the greater the harder the challenge, the greater the reward, and I stick by that today, and it still buzzes me up today.
Yeah. So over the years, then, obviously, your career within fishing has been quite sort of well reported.
Yeah.
But just for the benefit of our viewers, what have been your memorable captures over the years? What have you actually managed to get on the bank?
Before I go on to that, obviously, it kind of just came as a natural progression. I know there are a lot of anglers out there that try and go out and catch big fish straight away, and that's certainly not the way to do it. So before, I went from one water trying to catch doubles, and then I went to somewhere like Chipstead, which was really hard, and then I went to a lake called Alders, which is now, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, I think it's called Medway Valley Fisheries now. Anyway, so that was a lake that held lots of 20s and it was somewhere that I could go and catch 20-pounders on a regular basis. Once I'd learned another sort of side to my fishing, where I was having to move on a regular basis and work harder for your fish. There was a guy on there called Roy Ashdown, and he was really successful, and still goes fishing, you know, now, and catches some really good fish. But he was the guy that I watched on there, that I used to watch, and I used to think, that's what I've got to do. I've got to up my game, and I've got to do that to be able to catch these fish, because he was catching, you know, on a regular basis. So when I talk about memorable captures, everything I've done has been memorable, because it's all a learning curve. Catching all those 20s, they were all memorable, learning that side of my fishing. Then from there I sort of went just down the road to Larkfield, which had another well-known water in Kent, and fished by various well-known anglers over the years. So, you know, there were various fish in there that I wanted to catch. Scaly was the one in there at the time, and I did catch it, and it was, you know, it was a mid-30, you know, sort of size fish, and there was a few other 30s in there at the time. Caught a few of those, and then I went to the lake next door, which was the Railway Lake in Kent, where the famous Lever used to live. It's now passed away, and then from there I'd read Dave Lane's book on Raspberry, and I'd known about Mary, obviously, you know, for a few years. And Ben and I went down to Raspberry, and we walked around there one year, and I remember literally turning up down there, 120 acres, again, that feeling of that big daunting task in front of you,
ahead,
that Mary, like one of the greatest living carp, lived in there at the time. I remember bending down and literally putting my fingers in the water, and just thinking, I'm touching the water where Mary lives, and I was really drawn to that lake.
Drawn into it,
and that was somewhere that I went shortly after the Railway Lake. Done a few years on Larkfield, a few years on the railway. Went to Raspberry. You know, they're all memorable captures, but obviously one of my most memorable fish was catching the pug, which was my first 40-pound fish out of Raspberry. And that was, I think it was January the 30th, and that day I turned up, the lake was frozen solid. You know, it's a water where you can use boats with an engine and you know, all the rest of it, and it was due to rain that day and get windy, and I loaded my gear in the boat, went out to one of the areas that I'd been fishing, that I'd had 2 bites off previously that winter, and
yeah, bear in mind it's cold as well at this point. It's January the 30th, so it's cold, so, you know.
The lake was frozen, and I ploughed a channel up and down from the spot to the bank, got a rig on one of my spots where I had 2 bites from, and sat down, got the rest of my stuff sorted out, and that later on that day it rained and the wind turned up and the ice all broke down. Got the other 2 rods out, and by the time it got dark, just on dark, I had the pug at 40 pound 2 ounces. So that was a memorable fish.
Yeah, what a buzz! Definitely knowing that you put all that work into getting a rig out.
Yeah. And obviously your first 40, massive milestone. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
But then obviously I've been to other places such as Yateley Car Park Lake, and one of my burning desires was to go and catch basically both the leathers, i.e. the one from the railway and the one from the car park, because nobody else had done it. But my mate, mate Lowy, who was on the railway, he caught heather but not the railway leather, and there were various other anglers like Rob Malin that's been on both waters that he caught the railway leather but not heather, I believe. And various other anglers that have done a similar type of thing.
So it's basically, it was a challenge you set yourself. You wanted to catch both of them levers, and you managed to achieve it.
It's another thing. I did an article on that in Advanced Carp Fishing magazine. But so that was one, and then I had a period at the time, you know, where I was married with kids, and we ended up moving to Spain for a couple of years, and coming back it didn't work. during the time that I was fishing Raisbury, I'd caught all the fish apart from Mary, which passed away the year that I was on there. And I started to think about the mere and the Black Mirror, obviously, and I'd walked around it on 1 or 2 occasions, and I knew 1 or 2 of the guys that had fished on there, because we used to see them in the Perseverance pub, you know, on a social night out when we were fishing Raisbury. So I was kind of a little bit accepted. I think in recent years there was a little bit of something taken away from that lake by the publicity that it had received, just by various anglers, no one in particular, but it was something that was kind of kept, although people knew about it, we still like to keep it a little bit under the radar as to what was going on there, really. That was something that I had a burning desire in my mind to catch, and in fact I was still living in Spain when I started to come back for a few days at a time. I'd come back for maybe a week or 2, and I'd go to the mere and fish it, and then go back to the family in Spain, and then come get another flight back a couple of weeks later and do another few days. And funnily enough, I did have a little dabble on there, thinking back to it now, before I went to Spain, but it was during that period when I was coming back from Spain that I ended up catching the fish itself at 53.2, and again another massive memorable fish, my first 50. You see,
amazing, yeah,
you know,
amazing milestone.
53.2 it was,
It's
and
a colossal creature.
It's something that I've not written about in any magazine. It's something personal. I just hold it. I hold it close to my heart, that one, and maybe that may well get documented at a later stage. I don't know, but for now, it's just one of those fish that's just a fond memory, you know.
Definitely.
And then obviously memorable captures, various other lakes, really, to be honest with you. But you know, the mother out of Elstow, what a cracking fish that was. Fantastic fish, caught that one, like, you know, quite quickly, you know, very fortunate there. 2-tone again, you know, a 60-pounder, 64 pound 5 ounces it was, and I think the record was Cy Beta at the time, which was 65 and upper ounces. Not exactly sure of the weight, but that was one of my most memorable times fishing on that lake as well. The guys that were on there were all fantastic guys to fish with. Real good social scenes on there, but everyone respected the water. It was a fantastic place to be. Everyone respected everyone else's fishing. It was just a great place. And I think, to be honest with you, it was around about that time that obviously I was putting fish in Carp Talk on a regular basis, and I think that's how people started to note who you were, just by saying, oh, that guy's that guy who caught that fish. Oh, there he is again, and he's caught that fish. You know, it kind of just escalated from there. And I never really set out to make a name for myself. It kind of just happened, and I think, I know you're going to probably ask me, perhaps, you know, what would a young angler who's up and coming?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a question that's that's on a lot of young lads' lips. You know, that if they're, you know, getting right into their carp angling, and they're seeing, you know, this bloke, that bloke, you know, in these magazines, and like you say, they're seeing you popping up, and other well-known anglers like Terry Hearn, Chilcott, all the rest of them, and they're thinking, I want a piece of that. You know, so it's a question, you know, while you've got the opportunity, you've got to ask it, because obviously, you know, again, the young viewers that we've got that are watching are going to be thinking, you know, what have I got to do? What have I got to do? So,
well, to be honest, I mean, as I said, I never really went out and looked for it, and I think there are a lot of people that go out and look for it these days, and I do believe that's not the right way to go about it. I mean, at the end of the day, as long as you're a really nice guy, approachable, likeable, you speak to people, you get on with people, there's no reason why, you know, karma won't come back to you. As long as you carry on doing what you're good at, catching the fish, you know, keep your nose clean, and just sort of do your do, rather than going out looking for it.
Exactly. This is the point. A lot of people that I've ever asked this question, you know, it is literally just enjoy your sport and get into your fishing and try and get the captures. And yeah, like you say, if you're a well-rounded kind of fella, it's going to come along, isn't it?
Do you know what? I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people out there that see guys like myself that get in the magazines, that have sort of made a bit of a name for ourselves, and they think that it's all a bed of roses, and that we're earning great money to be able to afford to live on, not live on the bank, but go fishing more often than most.
Yeah.
And it's just not a case of that. It really is not a case of that. It's very difficult to make money out of carp fishing. Let me get that straight.
And the sacrifices as well.
It's all about the sacrifices. Just at the end of the day, there's been periods when you get a little bit of money from it, but there's large periods of time when you're not getting a penny out of it. So don't go out there and try and think I'm going to be the next Terry Hearn, because I'll tell you now, Terry Hearn is a one-off. And perhaps, you know, there's Terry, Jim Shelley, a couple of other names that do well out of it, but it's not something that you can set your stall out to go and try and achieve.
No.
It's very difficult.
Exactly. It's like in a lot of other sports, you've got your freaks of nature, so to speak, that stand out from the crowd, and obviously they're going to get approached by people, and that's going to, you know, pay certain monies, but you know, it's a skill that.
As long as you're doing,
skill set that those guys have got.
Yeah, as long as you're doing what you love, that's all you can ask for.
That's it.
It's better than doing a 9 to 5, but believe me, you know, there's some serious sacrifices to be made. If
this is like you say, a lot of people just do think it's a better race. Oh, great! I'm going fishing 5 days a week.
Tell you what, you know, marriages, divorces, that comes hand in hand with fishing. Yeah, divorce, separation, women and fishing do not mix.
It is as simple as that. But so while we're on that sort of subject, obviously a lot of people might not know, they might know, I don't think the news has quite got around, you know, too well yet, but you've made a move recently to go with Witchwood.
That's right, yeah.
So what was your reasons for that? What's made you do that?
Like I say, it's just a natural progression, and with Witchwood they kind of offered me the chance to be a little bit more involved with product development than anyone else that I've spoken to previously. And I mean, over the last couple of years they've, you know, really come on leaps and bounds with some of their products, and I've got an opportunity to help them advance with some tackle product knowledgement there, sort of thing, and it's a good time to get involved with Witchwood at the moment, you know, I'm really pleased, and I feel very grateful, very lucky for the opportunity that I've been given by them. And you know, funnily enough, there are bigger companies out there, however, you know, when I went and met the guys there and spoke to them, you know, and they offered me the chance to get involved, they are the one company that I've spoken to that have made me feel more welcome than any other tackle company, to be fair.
That's fair enough, mate. That's fair enough. So yeah, on to another one of your sort of consultancy deals. It's Mainline. I've been asked a question by one of the users of the forum that I run, Crafty Carping Forum. So I'd like to ask you, because obviously it's quite a good question, and I think it's a question a lot of people are going to be asking or even thinking, and that is basically, with so many companies out there now, so many bait firms. I mean, there's hundreds of bait firms out there now, and they're all offering baits between sort of £7 to £8 mark. And obviously they're catching fish. They've got some stunning galleries and stuff like that. What do you think, basically, that Mainline are offering value for money? Because we all know that, you know, their baits are more expensive than £7 to £8.
Yeah.
And do you think they're offering value with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they are one of the biggest bait companies out there.
They've been around
most successful, longest running, and their baits, you've only got to look in the weeklies to see how many fish are caught on their baits. Their baits, in my opinion, are you know, up there in the top tier of any bait company.
Yeah.
And I do feel, you know, you get what you pay for, and you know, I'd rather look, at the end of the day, there are many bait companies out there, but whether they'll be as long running as Mainline,
well, this is the thing, isn't it?
Is yet to be seen.
And your confidence is obviously sky high. As long as you're using a Mainline bait, you're happy that what
Listen,
you've got.
I'll tell you what, you've only got to speak to Kev Knight. Yeah, the amount of cell they produce says it all. I don't know the figures, but it's like, I don't
crazy,
know, it's like tenfold over their second best selling bait, and that is a phenomenal bait, I've got to say.
And like you say, you look in the weeklies and you sell.
Exactly, it's brilliant. It's a fantastic bait, and there's a new couple of different baits coming out as well. They've recently brought out the new Grange, and then there's another one I think coming out soon. Not sure when, but yeah, they're always looking to strive to develop the next best bait, because they are leaders in the field, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what are your goals for the future then, John? Because obviously you're here now, and you know, have you got anything in mind, like fish that you've seen that you might want to capture, or?
To be honest with you, there are one or two, but I haven't got so much as a list in front of me at the minute, because in the years gone by, I've had a few fish that laid out in front I'd wanted to go for, but with this fish being so difficult to catch, I don't feel as though there's much point trying to plan the next one, because this could be a bit of a tall task to get this one, so I could be here for quite some time trying to get this one. I mean, it is generally a warmer months type of fish, you know. It comes out during the warmer months, so I'm going to give it a good go. I'll fish here during this winter. Sometimes I've gone onto a different water for the winter, somewhere where I feel as though I might be in with a chance of catching another big fish that is catchable during those colder months. But this year I'm quite happy to be on here, so I'm happy here. And obviously there's like Choco and Bite Mark in Stone Acres is somewhere that I really would like to be going, to be honest with you. But that's as far as it goes, really.
But yeah, I mean, like you were saying earlier about you know, the challenge ahead and stuff like that. Obviously you're making this challenge that little bit more difficult, because you're aiming to catch this fish through the colder months. So
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's like I said, it's a hard task, but the same thing goes as what I said earlier. You know, the harder the challenge, the greater the reward, and I live by that all the time. So if anyone was fortunate enough to catch this fish, whether it be me or anyone else, I think it'll possibly be one of the greatest captures to catch this fish during the winter.
Yeah.
You know, it'll be up there with all the best captures of any other fish.
Definitely.
So good luck to whoever that might be, really. Just hope it's me.
We shall see. But yeah, so you know, talking about your captures and stuff like that, I've spoken to a few people recently that have mentioned about books and you know, like a memoirs or a biography.
Yeah.
Do you think this is something you want to tackle yet, or do you think there's still you know, there's many a chapter to be written before you want to sit down and approach this?
I am aware that quite a lot of people have said it to me. You know, it would be good to see you do a book, which is obviously a very flattering comment. You
Definitely.
know, that people think like that about you. And yeah, don't get me wrong. There is with what I've caught, there is enough there for a book. But if I carry on catching them, I don't think I'll ever write a book. But I mean, at the minute, there are so many people doing books that I just feel as though a little bit of the prestige has been taken away. But don't get me wrong, you know, like a lot of my captures have been covered in magazine articles here and there, but to have it in,
there's still the unknown, John.
yeah, but to have it in a book for posterity would be a lovely thing.
Definitely, definitely.
But I'm not making any statements or any direct plans right now to do that yet.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Right, we're gonna go on to talk about the multi rig now, or as it's more commonly known, the Johnny Mac rig, because you've championed it over the years, haven't you, mate?
Yeah, it's just something that obviously I've publicised probably more than most anglers that have used it. So yeah, it kind of commonly got associated with me. But yeah, it's basically the multi-rig, and a lot of people associate that with being used as for a pop-up rig. But you can use it on a bottom bait setup as well with a bottom bait, and it's just as effective. I know it's been well documented, but obviously, I'm going to show you just quickly how I tie it.
Hook of choice, you know, and your ring material. So yeah,
exactly.
Let's have a look at that then.
Right, okay, so I'm going to show you how to tie this rig now. Basically what I use is one of the coated braids. The one I'm using here is the Atomic Jelly Wire in 25 £. There you go, we've got a normal sort of length there, probably about 12 inches or so. And all you want to do to start off with is basically form a loop. Just fold it back over like that, and it's so simple. It's just a simple overhand granny knot to form that loop. It's nothing special about that knot whatsoever. It's probably about 1.5 centimeters from the knot to the top of the loop. Now you can make that loop a little bit longer if you want to make your pop-up higher. Obviously I like to keep it quite close down near the deck, so it's not too dissimilar from one of the bottom baits. I mean, I don't bait tight with this particular rig because I don't want fish to move in and start feeding close to the bottom with a lot of food around, because they could miss the pop-up. So I generally sort of scatter my bait about a little bit, and therefore the fish is tilting down, picks a bait up, moves off to the next bait, and that's when I feel as our pop-up is a little bit more effective. So I've got my basic loop there. The hook choice is basically one with an out-turned eye. There's a lot of them out there, but again, I've got the Atomic Chodder in size 5 here, in the Gunsmoke Grey. Really strong hooks, these. Definitely my favourite. Caught a lot of good fish on these hooks, and I've never ever had one straighten out on me. Now basically what I'm doing, I've got the top of the loop, and I'm going to push it through the inside of the eye, so it comes out the back of the hook, like so. And onto there, I'm then going to place a rig ring, a small 2.5mm ring. You can use a circular one, oval one, teardrop shaped ones, whatever's your preference. It doesn't really matter. So basically, I've placed the ring on top of the loop. That's slid down to the eye of the hook there. And what I'm going to do is, there's no knot to tie this hook to the hook link. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that loop and I'm going to fold it over the hook like so. Don't know if you can see that, but I'm just sliding that loop over the hook and around the point, and then you can pull that down. Basically this forms a D on the back of the shank of the hook, like so. Don't know if you can see that against my hand, and the ring is now on the D. Now, so basically this hook can slide around on this D, which isn't very good if you're casting, putting quite a lot of effort into the cast. That can slip occasionally. However, it's less likely to do so with the weight of the bait on there. But what I do to prevent that slipping is put a small piece of silicone tube in, onto the back end of this section of the rig, about a centimetre or so in length. So I'm now going to slide the silicone tubing over the knot that I made earlier on by forming the loop. Now I'm sliding it over the knot, and I'm going to slide it over the eye of the hook. A little bit fiddly, but obviously the larger the eye of the hook, then you're going to struggle a little bit, like I am doing here, but we'll get that on. Like so. Obviously I've pulled the D down quite tight there, so I'm just going to make that a bit bigger, so that the ring is towards the top of the D, like so. And basically just below the knot I'm going to strip a little bit of that back, just where I can put either a piece of putty or a shot. I think it's important to make sure that your shot is below that knot, because it gives this section room to move around and helps you hook the fish. So I'm just going to use a piece of shot. You can use a piece of putty. I know it doesn't look great, but I'm not a firm believer that the fish can see this, so it doesn't really bother me. So basically that's the hook section of the rig, just like so. And then obviously you put your swivel on the end there. You can put a couple of blobs of putty on there if you wish to do so as well. I'm just going to show you how I tie my bait on. The great thing about this rig, I mean, you can see that the hook kind of sits over like so. If you prefer a certain other pattern of hook, then you can use whatever hook you like. If it doesn't have an outturned eye, then you really do need that piece of silicone on there, because that will help hold the hook in the correct position, rather than if you didn't have it on there, it would sit right over like so, in a more exaggerated fashion, and I prefer it just at this kind of angle, like this. Okay, so I've just pulled off a section of bait floss there, as you can see, for me to tie this bait on with. And I'm just going to pass this through the rig ring, which is on the back of the D. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to form a big loop like so, and then I'm going to form another small loop over the big loop like that. The tag I'm going to pass back underneath and through both the loops at the same time, and it forms a small knot like that, and then you can pull this down to a smaller size loop, and then I'm going to put the boilie inside there. Just one of the fluoro pop-ups here, one of the mainline ones I've been using, white ones, pink ones, and I'll show you with a bright pink one just so it's nice and visible for the camera. A little bit fiddly this, but obviously you'll get the hang of it if you start using this rig. So I've trapped the boilie inside the circle, I pull that tight, and I do about 5 knots probably, 1, 2, 5. Just going to cut those tags off, and then this is the part that's quite neat. Rather than I've seen some people tie knots and knots and knots to try and tie their baits on with, but if you do it in this way, then you can basically get a lighter and lob that down like so. Basically there you have the hook section of the rig, and I have the buoy in this type of position in relation to the hook. So as I said, you can use it as a pop-up or a bottom bait, and the only thing you need to do, if that was a bottom bait, is leave the shot off. Strip the plastic back, the coating off the coated braid back in the same way, exactly the same rig, just without the pop-up, without the shot, because also again you want that stripped off section to be nice and supple. And what I like about it, obviously, is pretty self-explanatory. Fish sucks it in, and when it blows it out, the boilie goes back down the shank of the down to the hook, down to the bottom of the D, away from the hook point, and enables good hooking for your situation there. That's it. All you need to do, obviously, like I say, finish the rig off with a swivel, a couple of blobs of putty, and you're good to go.
Oh, well, thanks for going through your rig with us, John. That's very kind of you. Show us how you use that, and yeah, basically, thanks ever so much for doing the interview.
Oh, you're welcome, mate.
And we look forward to seeing some pics of you holding a really big common.
You never know, mate. You never know. Might be a long time coming, but no, thanks a lot, and yeah, it's been a good day, and been a pleasure talking to you, mate.
No worries, mate. John's got a Facebook page if you want to follow him on there. You've also just recently joined Twitter.
Yeah.
If you want to keep really up to date with what he's up to, he's going to be tweeting tweets out for that. So yeah, it just brings me to say thank you ever so much for watching, and see you next time.